Hey everyone. Okay, so you're wondering what's happening. Yeah, I recorded the whole video with no sound. So I'm gonna just see if I can do a voiceover. It should be actually probably pretty funny. I know I talked about the disqualifications that happened this week in Texas. Um, both Hamilton and Charles got disqualified. And yeah, this put a huge switch up to the race standings after the race was finished. A lot of drama. I think I said without further ado, let's go on to see who moved up and who moved down. Okay, so our first swap is between Charles and Norris. Charles had started in P1, but Lando got a better start than him. So P2 for him right away. And then his team put him on a strange strategy that left him in no man's land, and he ended up finishing only P6 from P1. Max finished P1 from P6 on the other hand. And then Charles got disqualified. What a race for him. Lando Norris, on the other hand, started in P2, got a jump on Charles at the start. He only got passed by Hamilton near the end of the race to finish in P3, and then got elevated back up to P2 after Hamilton was disqualified. So great day for him, and he moves up in the standings. Next swap is between Stroll and Gasly. Lance Stroll had to start from the pit lane since his car had to be modified after Parc Fermé. He seems to have enjoyed the updates on the car that the Aston Martins got this week, unlike his teammate Alonso, and he finished in P7. Pierre Gasly had a great race, starting in P7 and finishing in P6, outscoring Lance enough to move ahead of him in the championship. Yeah, both Gasly and Ocon were really in good form this week for the Renault team. And our final swaps were Tsunoda gets ahead of Zhou. Zhou started in P12 and finished in P13, so not a great race, and he reported that the car, although better than before, still had a lot of tire drag, so they just kind of lost pace throughout the race. Yuki, on the other hand, started in P11, and as you can see, I'm very happy for him. He got ahead of Daniel Ricciardo at the start. He has a great race and is able to make an extra pit stop at the end to get the fastest lap on soft tires, earning one more point. Then with the disqualifications, he moves up 2 and ends up in P8. This gives him a total of 5 points for this race, almost tripling his championship points and moving him up a spot. Okay, and finally, and I even messed that up, I had a separate animation for Logan Sargent. He goes across and he gets his first point. It's due to the disqualifications. He started in P16, so not great, and drive actually a good race up to P12. And then he moved up 2 spots due to the disqualifications, which landed him that point. And yes, went through the trouble of getting him on the list as promised. Okay, and here are the rest of the drivers. So just a few notes. Max wins again, this time from P6, as mentioned, and it wasn't a trouble-free race either. He just continues to rise to every occasion, getting the absolute most out of his amazing car. The fans booed him, and I think that was highly disrespectful, and it was nice to see him just take it in stride and not get flustered. My guess is that there's just a lot of Checo fans there in Austin, and it just was great on them that Max is continuing to do so much better. Sergio manages to pull further away from Hamilton, but only due to Hamilton's disqualification. Where am I going to point? Yes, good girl. Otherwise, would have been very close to on his heels indeed. So he buys himself some breathing room there. although he had a good race himself, it wasn't a bad one. So he's, of course, going to be hoping to do better in Mexico. That's his home race. Alonso still holding on to fourth in the championship, but a DNF in this race is not helping with that. Carlos Sainz is holding his own after getting elevated to a podium this week due to disqualifications. So that definitely helped him as well, although he didn't get to celebrate on the podium. Oscar Piastri is also holding on to his spot, although this week's DNF has him slow down in closing his gap to George. The DNF was due to contact with Ocon in the very first lap, and that basically cost both of them their race because Ocon also did not finish. Gasly and Stroll are still close, but Ocon is falling off a bit there. He used to be right neck and neck with them, but another DNF. He's had, I think they said 6 DNFs this season, so that's a lot. But yeah, the other two will continue battling it out. And then Yuki, as I mentioned, is now a threat to Hülkenberg and Bottas because he's got 8 points and 9 and 10 is just 2 points away. So I'm really happy for him, and let's see if he's able to catch up there. Okay, so for the teams, we have a swap. McLaren gets ahead of Aston Martin. Not too surprising. I mean, we have a DNF again, this time for Alonso, and he was really the one mostly scoring the points for the team, whereas McLaren continues to score decently with both drivers, even on a weekend that wasn't the best for Oscar. They still managed to get ahead of Aston Martin, so that's it. I don't think there are enough races for them to catch up to Ferrari, so this is probably the way it's going to stay there. The other swap we have is Alfa Romeo actually gets ahead of Haas. Haas, both drivers finished with no points, so that was not going to help. And yeah, as for the rest, both Williams scored points for the first time in recent F1 history. Again, they were moved up due to the disqualifications, but I bet they're happy, so that's pretty nice for them. Haas was very excited to bring upgrades at their home race, but again scored no points. My guess is they simply tuned it wrong for the race. After only having one free practice session due to the fact that it was a sprint weekend, so that just really wasn't enough to come to terms with their new package. I really expect to see more from them in Mexico. And they may unswap those positions with Alfa Romeo in the next race. Okay, so yeah, that was pretty eventful, especially due to the 2 disqualifications. Super happy for Yuki. Ricardo didn't get a point, but maybe he will next time. He's not doing badly in the car. They just had him on a different strategy to try to do the best possible outcome for the team. I think I'm saying I'm so happy for Yuki because it really is cool for him to do that. And the next race is Mexico, which is, of course, Sergio's home race where he's going to want to do as best as he can. And he's going to have the home crowd there really boosting him up. I also went in to talk about the reason for the disqualifications. They have a baseboard. It's not a board like made from wood, but it's a plank where they that rule has been in place since 1994 to just make sure that the teams don't ride their car too low because it's a safety concern, and they just have to prove that they haven't worn down that board more than I think it was 2 millimeters. Anyways, and the way that they check after the race is they select 4 cars at random from the 4 winning teams. So I'm not sure if it's 1 car from each of the 4 teams, but anyways, they selected 4 cars, and 2 of those 4 cars were found to be the board was worn too far. It was a matter of 0.3 millimeters. And yeah, so I'm saying there, it's because, they had to lock in their car after one practice session, and then that plank had to survive the wear of the sprint quali, the sprint race, the quali, and the main race. So there was probably more wear than usual. Plus, it was a bumpy track. So they're not going to change the rule, but it was just a confluence of circumstances, and perhaps if it wasn't in the forefront of the team's minds to give it that little extra leeway, they would not have been disqualified. But there you have it. Nobody's fighting it too much. They understand that, yeah, they messed up. That was a very interesting race. Thanks for watching. I'm totally just guessing. Next race is Mexico. See you then. Bye.